Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I thought it would be fun to show you how I perform one of my favourite tarot spreads to do ever, and they are yearly forecast readings. I enjoy doing these the most out of every other spread that I've tried, simply because I feel like it's really easy to get into the flow of how they talk to each other with it all being in a circle. Like, it feels like I can kind of quite instantly get an idea of how somebody's year is going to look from like the general amount of quote unquote negative cards and positive cards. I can see right in front of me like what all the cards seem to have in common, what the most prominent months are, maybe the most important months or the busiest months, or I can also see quite quickly what months are going to be more stagnant and slower. I feel like you can also do this spread if you're a beginner, and you can also do it if you're really experienced, because you can talk for as long or as little as you like. You might want to do this spread just to see if you're going to have a good year, and you could simply answer like, yes, but it seems like there will be lots of things that might test you, or you could be like, yes, it looks like you're going to be really social this year, or oh, it looks like you might have a lot of things that could potentially test you this year. Or you can do a really full in-depth reading where you pick apart each month and you work out different events that are likely to happen and different discoveries that you might make in the year, etc. I've done a lot of these readings for people in the month of January because I feel like this is the best time of year to do them as well. It's good to know at the beginning of the year what you've got in store, where you should be focused this year, what sort of months will be better than others. I really encourage people to give this kind of reading a go, so definitely use this video as an opportunity to try it right now. It's very, very simple. I still am able to do readings for other people if you want somebody else to read for you, so I'll leave my tarot Facebook page down there in the video description, but I do encourage for you to give it a go yourself too. All it basically involves is taking your favourite deck, possibly another one as well, to pull clarifiers later on, and you'll see in this video what a clarifier can do to the reading. Shuffling your deck, putting the intention into the deck of what you want the cards to bring up. So you'll have the year in mind, so you'll say that you're doing a reading for 2021. You've got the intention of pulling 13 cards, 12 cards being January through to December. Ask the cards to represent 12 months of my 2021, starting with January, ending in December, and then I put the deck down, cut once, cut twice, and then from the middle deck I pull 12 cards, and I lay the cards out in a circle shape to represent kind of a clock of the year. So I work around it clockwise, so it'll be like January, February, March, April, May, June, July, up to December. And then when I pulled 12 cards, I'll take the deck again and then shuffle and ask for a card to represent the year as a whole. So I just keep on shuffling until one card falls out of the deck, and I take that as, the Death card, my center card. So then you will have 13 cards to represent 2021. So you can do that now while watching me interpretate mine, and you can kind of like follow along with me. So obviously my cards will be different to what you get in this video, but it can kind of help you with your own. Like, if you're listening to how I've picked up certain messages from my own cards, it might help you with reading your own. I would also say it's important to keep in mind the stuff that you want the cards to pick up. So this in particular that you're watching for me is my career reading. So all of the things I'll be talking about is work-based and also creative-based, because that's the nature of my work. But obviously you've got to translate these card meanings into the category that you're reading about, and 80% of what tarot is just translating each card to make sense with the question that you're asking about. So you might want to know more about friendships in the year, you might be focused on health and stuff like that. So then you've got to look at the cards that you've been given and see how they fit in those categories. What does the Nine of Pentacles mean in terms of health? Well, that means contentment and peace, so being able to rest and feeling very abundant in health, so that will be a positive. With the clarifiers, like I said, it might be useful to have another deck to shuffle for clarifiers for each card, and what I'll do for that is just say I've got the Three of Pentacles landing in my January position. As I'm sort of focusing on that and working out what that means in terms of my month of January, I will say, could I have a clarifier for this please? Usually when I've sort of already thought of some keywords that the Three of Pentacles makes me think of, because I want to think of the stuff that intuitively I'm picking up on first before I've got any clarifying cards to kind of give me more information. So I'll pick up things initially and then I'll say, can I have a clarifier for this? And I'll usually just shuffle until once again a card comes out and I've got more context then, and you'll see in the rest of this video how context on certain cards really helps. So follow me along on my own reading and hopefully this helps you with yours. Like I said, if this is too difficult and you find it quite hard, then I'm available to book a reading if you're interested, and the links to doing that are down there. You can email me or DM me on Instagram or Twitter, whatever's best for you. So here are your example cards. Let's say this is your spread for a yearly forecast, and the best thing about these spreads and why I love them so much is that you can spend as long or as little time as you want on this spread. You could literally sit here and chat about these cards for up to an hour, or you could literally take a glance at the kind of cards that you've got and the natural like flow of them. If you look at them in order of the months, you can kind of tell how the year will feel when it comes to slowness or quickness, how much success, like have you got a lot of money cards. Obviously whatever you're reading about, you have to keep that in mind. It's a bit like doing an exam question at school when you have to keep looking back to the question to make sure you're staying on point. It's easy to like sometimes forget about what you're actually reading. So if you're doing a love reading, you want to make sure you've got a lot of cups. Are those cups good cups? Do they come with clarity or are they hazy? If you're a social person and you want a year filled with lots of networking, etc., you want to have a look at how many other people you've got in the cards, or do your cards look quite isolated? Is a lot of your focus going to be within? Like, are you going to be doing a lot of inner work? Is there going to be a lot of self-care involved in the year? So you basically probably want to write down maybe a few questions that you have about the year and keep them in mind when you're shuffling, and then you look at all the cards so you can kind of answer your own questions. But that obviously depends on each person reading. That will change, like what your priorities are and what you want to know will change for everybody reading. So the first thing I'd like to do is look at the general flow of the cards. Most of mine look positive. They look as though they speak about quite a few major changes, particularly at the beginning of the year, because you want to look at how many major arcana cards you've got. I've got 4 in a row here, so that kind of tells me that like there's a lot of prominent energy when it comes to big decisions and changes and bold moves at the beginning of the year. And then when I look at maybe the other cards, I want to see where that will take me. So I've got 9 of Pentacles here, which is good for a career reading because you want cards with a lot of pentacles in. So that tells me any cards before that are likely to put myself in a good place, and I'll talk about that later on. I also want to look at what other elements other than pentacles is prominent in the reading, particularly if it doesn't typically happen to be a element which maybe many people want. So if you're reading about love, not many people will probably want to see too many swords in the reading, so you really need to focus in on those swords and what they could mean if you do get a lot. But in this case, for a career reading, I've got quite a lot of cups, and they all seem to be in the same area too. So while the beginning of the year tells me that there seems to be a lot of big change, like major changes happening and bold moves, and maybe even some prominent people that will mean a lot to me at that certain time in the year might have some words of wisdom to provide. The end of the year tells me that I might feel more connected creatively, because cups is all about not only love but creativity, and seeing, you know, two people, like a partnership of some kind in between the cards with cups in, tells me that maybe I will be creatively expressing with someone else, or there's something important to do with collaborating with someone, expressing myself not only in my work form but to somebody else, with somebody else. I also have to kind of look at what process got me to the change in elements. So if I've recognized that I've got 3 cards with cups here, I want to see what put me in that place. Like, why is there a shift in that energy? And the strength actually comes before that. So it's something which maybe I've decided to take on board with a lot of courage, and determination in mind, particularly because even the moon comes before strength, and the moon is about going places that you aren't used to and that is different and new to you and maybe a bit scary. So to get the moon next to the strength card makes a lot of sense, because the moon is unknown territory and it's trying times. It's a bit like scary and untrodden waters. But I find the courage somewhere around September time. Basically, it definitely feels like something to do with maybe a new idea I had, or something that I feel drawn towards because of the Ace of Swords, but I am probably a little bit scared by it. And this is when you can really dig deeper into readings, because you can pull clarifiers for each one of these cards, and clarifiers basically just give you more context. Instead of me just saying, look, there's something scary that might happen in August, and you know, it will take a lot of courage, like it will be really beneficial to pull another card on top of the moon to find out what is that about, where am I going, like what's this to do with. It gives me more information, particularly with the Ace of Swords coming before the moon. To me, the Ace of Swords is all about having a new idea. It's kind of like being very clear-headed, so a light bulb moment come out of nowhere, or maybe I found it while experiencing more of a peaceful, abundant, financially stable June. It's like put me in a place where July I feel more clear and I know where I want to go, I feel more sure, but it involves doing something quite new and possibly bold. But you know, strength is whatever you need courage for personally as a person. Like, what holds you back? What do you need the courage to find? What do you need strength to do? And for me personally, it would make sense if this is something to do with collaborating or connecting with people, because I do get very anxious around certain people, and being able to creatively express with other people. I'm a bit of a hermit usually, and I keep all my ideas to myself, and I like working on my own. So to kind of branch out to other people does test my mental health a little bit, and so seeing something like this would naturally make someone nervous, me nervous, and be like, oh god, like what is it that I'm gonna have to push myself to do. But when I look at, you know, this Ace of Swords here in July, it kind of gives me the confidence in knowing that something that I have decided to do, or an idea that I feel is good enough, has put me in that place of wanting to find the courage to work on something. Clearly something about it is will open up new options for me and new opportunities. So it's kind of also reassuring to know that I have a sense of direction. I kind of feel very clear in what it is I need to do. If you imagine this is quite a bright card, as a literal light bulb, it being very close to the moon makes me feel like that idea and that the way I'm thinking and my thought processes at that time will guide me through the dark parts of the moon card, which might normally be quite frightening for me, or might be something that could very easily be scary enough to make me give up. But because the card previously tells me that this is coming from an energy that feels really sure and concrete, there's clearly like a way of thinking here that is very precise and certain. It makes me feel more confident in knowing that I will probably approach that scary pathway here very well, because the card previously seems good. And that's something that is a massive advantage to this spread. The cards like talk to one another, so you always want to look at what comes next, what comes before. Like I said with the Nine of Pentacles, this is a really nice card to get in a career reading, because it tells you reach a place of financial abundance, or maybe even peace when it comes to your career life, work life. Like you can relax a little bit, maybe because you don't have to work as hard, or maybe you feel in a good place creatively. You've got a little time to relax and enjoy a bit of bonus money or some extra income or whatever. So you want to look at the card previously to help you work out what might have got you there. Now the Two of Swords is about a decision. So you could look at the Two of Swords on its own in any other spread and say, oh no, the Two of Swords is coming this year. That's a big decision you're going to have to make. You might be torn about something, you might be in the middle of two very valid pathways, and it's sometimes a little bit worrying to hear that, because someone might think that they might not make the right decision. But this spread itself kind of helps me understand that I'm very likely to make a decision that's right for me, because the Nine of Pentacles is a really cheerful, happy, content card. So I can kind of move forward into the year having faith that I'm going to make good decisions. As long as I take my time and think about them properly, I'm likely to put myself in a good place as I move on throughout the year. So in the same way, for example, we could look at the Magician card. We know the Magician is a very powerful card in making bold moves, making changes, manifesting new things into your life. So you want to look at the card previously to see the kind of headspace that you're likely to be in, to see the kind of energy that's going on in your life to make bold moves in the next month. For me personally, I feel like this tells me that in March there might be some pieces of advice I can take on board from someone close to me. The Hierophant is all about an educator, it's a mentor, it's someone with a lot of experience, maybe someone old-fashioned, traditional, it could be an older person. They've got some things that they can teach me, they've got some valuable lessons. This could likely be, to see the Magician close to the Hierophant, it might be a very practical, bold move. Maybe this is a move that I feel like I need to take action with because it's right or stable, it involves more security in my life. Because of these cards being close together, that's the kind of vibe that this Magician's giving off to me. But once again, we can pull Clarifiers later on to give me a better idea on that. Whereas, if I had the Magician after a 7 of Cups, I want to make sure that my client, if I'm reading for someone or myself, is aware that the figure in the 7 of Cups card might have a hard time making a decision if her head's too much in the clouds. And magic, manifesting, etc. The Magician is a lot more powerful when he's in a clearer headspace, because the 7 of Cups can be about illusions and not seeing things for what they are, which would go against everything that the Magician stands for, really, because he's about having a pinpoint idea on exactly how to manifest something. And when you manifest anything in Magician energy, you have to have a very concise step-by-step process towards the thing that you really want. You've got to be really fixated on your ideas. If I was to get a 7 of Cups before the Magician, I might say to the person that I'm reading that they shouldn't rush into anything that they're deciding. Make sure that they are fully aware of what committing to an idea or something new that they're trying to manifest means, which I do kind of tell myself in this reading, to be fair, because I've got the 7 of Cups here. The 4 of Cups comes a little bit after the 7 of Cups, and the 4 of Cups is often about disappointment, things not maybe working out as they expected, boredom, something to do with what they currently have going on not being enough. So even that order tells me there might be a temptation to jump into something that seems better than it actually is. Because there's some disappointment about maybe a decision that I made, possibly to do with somebody else, because there's, 2 people sandwiched in between this sort of decision process. And I'd also take a look at some things that you might see popping up in more than one card. So there's a lot of clouds with these cups here, and there's a cloud offering 1 cup up here. So to me, like, if you're getting a lot of cups, which is feelings and creativity, and a lot of clouds within them, that tells me that maybe there's some foggy headspace, and sure, there might be a lot of creativity going on, but maybe in some sense too much, because you're not able to make some clear-headed decisions. I might have to step away a little bit from time to time to work out the reality behind an opportunity that maybe presents itself by the end of the year. I also like looking for patterns as well. The biggest one that I noticed with this particular reading is how the year starts off as someone sitting down on a throne. So cards that are sat down tells me that the month in general is a little bit slower and less active. And then you've got the figure in February's card standing up, so that tells me there's more going on, like more action being taken and more physical kind of control after a period of stagnant energy, which could be because of heavy planning or organizing, like a minute to stop and work things out and kind of organize myself, which I mean is exactly what my January was all about. And obviously I'm referring to the fact that the Emperor is all about someone who is aware of what needs to be done to bring more kind of structure and reliability into the business. So to start the year as Emperor energy is someone who's very focused on what needs to be done to provide a better future. And then February tells me it's like you know, she's standing up and she's taking action on the things I previously thought about. So that's exactly what this month has been. Stepping up from that throne, starting to make the moves that he previously has thought about and reflected on. And also the interesting thing about this is the Temperance. She's holding 2 cups, and often those 2 cups are representing old and new. So she's taking old elements and combining them with new ones, working on that blend of implementing new stuff into what already is. Tells me that the Emperor was focused on new things that he can bring into the business to make it stronger. So the pattern I'm noticing is then it's going back to a march of sitting down, reflecting, probably doing a bit more studying and reflecting on the business and working out what needs to be done. This is once again a very kind of serious-ish looking card, going by the facts, the rules, and understanding what needs to be done. Once again, it's similar to the Emperor, kind of. And then we go back into that, you know, snapping into action. So it's like planning, action, planning, action, planning. Not so much action here, but the pattern really persists around the beginning of the year. So it seems like to me a massive chunk of the year up until about May is all about organizing myself, organizing where I focus in my career. The rest of the year is mostly about then finding the courage to do that and doing exactly what it is that I've been reflecting over, manifesting and trying to bring into my career. And obviously you want to look at how the year ends. So the 4 of Cups to me is a little bit worrying because it's someone who maybe is a little bit disappointed with the results, but this is when pulling Clarifiers, more cards, gives me more context on maybe what I'm disappointed in or what I can do differently, and there'd be no point in reading tarot cards if they can't help us in any way. Like, what's the point in just finding out what's going to happen if we're just going to put us through the pain or the disappointment twice? Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, the whole point is to see things as warnings and to see them as opportunities to change that disappointment. Like, what can I learn from the cards beforehand to bend and manipulate the way the energy folds? And that's the beauty of it. If you look at the center card, this will be the kind of overall theme of your year, I guess the most prominent energy, what you will take from this year the most, what all of these cards are talking about. It kind of is an anchor point for the rest of the reading. To me, the 6 of Cups is all about my history, my past. So that tells me this is dealing with something that I've been dealing with for a while, possibly even since I was a child, which when it comes to my career and work stuff, I've always done the same thing. So that doesn't surprise me at all, but it is also very connected to emotions because it's a very nurturing card, which makes me look at the second half of my year. And it could be pointing towards how, you know, connecting with someone, working with other people could bring some beneficial stuff into my working year. But not only that, you know, it's asking me to look to throughout the year to remember the 6 of Cups as a message in a way. So you want to look at the middle card and think, what can I take from this card with every single month that goes by? And the 6 of Cups, because of it being about history, that tells me never to forget about the past, never to forget about the things I've tried, the things I've tested, like my whole journey and process of getting to where I am when it comes to my work stuff. So as long as I remember not to make the same mistakes or forget the things I've already tried, like this is about remembering the things that worked, remembering the things that didn't work, and learning from my old mistakes. This isn't about starting new. Like when I saw The Magician, I was like, oh God, am I going to be trying to find myself a new job entirely, starting a new career of some sort? And then I even saw the Ace of Swords and I thought this could be about a new job. But if I'm focused in here, this to me screams a little bit more about continuing to do what I've been doing, but in a different way, keeping in mind the journey and the process I've had to help me make the decisions forward in some new directions for sure. Like I don't see any death card here, like I don't see me dropping anything behind entirely. It's more about staying focused in what was, what is, and trying to sort of change that and bend that slightly in a few different directions, perhaps having another approach to things. So a good idea if you just want to read the 12 cards and you want to keep it kind of brief is to come up with some keywords for each month, so you can jot them down in a journal or your book of shadows and sort of summarize your month up in keywords such as the Emperor, you could say discipline, rules, concrete grounds, plans. The Temperance, you could say blending new elements, action, control. March, you could say teaching, old-fashioned, traditional, keeping away from feelings. April, you could say manifesting something new, ready for change. Crossroads, decision making, blockage, change, intuition. So that's a good way to finish the reading, because you can kind of note down things to remind yourself as you go into the year, because a lot of this stuff you will end up forgetting by the time we get to October. You might forget that you gave yourself that advice and therefore end up falling into the difficult period that the cards originally warned you about. But what I like to do, because I like to go deeper and dive deeper, and I like to pick apart everything as much as possible, give myself as much detail to look back on throughout the year, I will pull clarifiers. So a clarifier is basically just an extra card on top of the card you've already got. So I will shuffle the deck and ask for more context, more clarity on the Emperor, and then a card will fall out of my deck as I'm shuffling, and I will take that on board as information to guide me through the year. So I got the Knight of Swords with the Emperor, both pretty serious and stern cards. They're both quite masculine as well, so to me that tells me that month was there was a more aggressive and strong approach when it comes to making new ideas, because the Knight of Swords, he's like very ambitious. He goes against the grain. He's trying to create change and do something that is against his norm, because you look at the way the trees are blowing this way and he's going that way. So he is quite aggressive energy in another direction, but he's doing it to provide stability and structure, because that's all the Emperor cares for. The Emperor's well aware that to provide that in his business, to get more security in my career, like it has to be aggressive change and in a new direction. So see how that gives me a little bit more context. Not a lot, because I'm not pulling millions of cards per month, but it gives me a little bit more information. So if I move into February, my clarifier for that month was the Sun. So the Sun with the Temperance makes me feel more optimistic about being able to achieve the things that I'm working on, which I'd currently been reflecting over in January, because the Sun is very optimistic. It's like new opportunities coming to light. In a career reading, it says fresh new projects and them likely being a success. It's also hard efforts as well, because the Temperance is about having patience and working hard. The Sun being on top of that as a clarifier sort of tells me like it will pay off. It won't feel unappreciated, and I feel confident in my abilities and the stuff I want to change in my career. And I'll also kind of feel back in my groove, because she is a card of movement after a stagnant month. That kind of tells me that she's back in her groove. I'm feeling very bright and sunny, you know, two suns. Temperance is about balancing, having moderation in your life, so not having too much work going on, not having too much fun. So it's almost like saying there's a good balance of fun and work, because I've got a fun card in my work reading. Having a lot of abundance in the limelight, because I always see the sun as like something shining down, like a bright light of some kind. So being on full display. And then we just kind of continue doing that as the months go on. So my clarifier for the Hierophant in March, the Knight of Cups in reverse. Reversals obviously make things a little bit complicated, so you don't have to work with these. But basically, when you pull clarifiers, my biggest piece of advice is to take on board everything you know about both of those cards together and see what they both have in common. What do they both talk about? How are they both similar to each other? And the reason why I do that is because it helps me decide on what the most prominent part of the card's message is. So because I know that the Knight of Cups in reverse is about taking a step away from feelings, because the Knight of Cups upright is the opposite basically, and court cards upside down are often the opposite of what they are upright. So I can look at the Hierophant and also say how that's very similar. She isn't about emotions, she's just about doing the thing that works. And to me, because this is a court card, often when court cards come up, you know, kings, queens, Knights, when they come up in readings, it's often about another energy outside of you, so someone else who can help you. So because I've got a Knight here and the Hierophant, which is often also about someone who's able to help me, this kind of confirms that this is someone who I'm able to take advice from. They've got something to give me that isn't emotional advice necessarily, but it can be creative, because the Cups is also about creative energy. So there might be someone I can talk to who can help make a new creative project work. And I say new because we've got the Magician here, and often the Knight of Cups brings something new as well. So it's likely about someone being able to teach me something which will give me a more realistic view and approach of the project, because of the Hierophant being a very old-fashioned traditional card. You know, she doesn't take any risks. In fact, all of this feels very controlled. I don't feel any risk taking here, and it's going back to that Six of Cups of like looking back into my own kind of pathway and realizing what worked and what didn't, and trying to pursue on the things that I haven't yet tried and the things that are more likely to work. The Magician, the clarifier for the Magician. Once again, we've got a court card, so because I've got a king here, I could say that there's someone close externally who might have some supportive words and teachings which could help me in making some new moves and bringing some new things into my working year. The Magician needs to be in a clear headspace and needs to see things very precisely. So maybe the King of Cups was able to help me with that. This could be in terms of what is being manifested. You know, I might ask for clarity on what it is that she's bringing in. And if I get the King of Cups, I could be manifesting a new direction involved with the sort of things that the King of Cups is involved with, which is healing, counselling, care, looking after people, nurturing, and that also resonates with this middle card here. So that could be a new focus or something that, you know, related to what it is that I'm trying to bring in here in the month of April. Bringing in the things that mean a lot to you in the heart, because the King of Cups is all about the heart. The Two of Swords is a good card to ask a clarifier for, because we want to know what this decision's about. And I got the King of Wands, and so I know the Two of Swords is often about being torn between two visions. Usually I always get Two of Swords when it's like in the middle of two different people's visions or viewpoints, and perhaps like other people can't understand what your goal is. So maybe there's something to do with a new direction that I've initiated here not maybe being to everybody's cup of tea. Maybe I feel torn and it's put me in some sort of blockage. The Two of Swords is always about blockage as well. I probably should have mentioned the King of Wands was in reverse. I think I turned it over upright. This was in reverse, and like I said, court cards in reverse are often like the opposite of how they are upright. So if a king is a leader, it might be resonating to the fact that I don't feel like I am in a position to lead right now. Like I can't step up and keep people happy, and I don't feel confident in doing that. It also could be to do with the fact that because the King of Wands is usually really good at communicating a vision, in reverse it's bad with communicating a vision. She's not able to kind of bring a concept into reality in people's opinion, and that might kind of make her feel a little bit stuck. She might lack confidence, thinking that other people have better things over you. But you know, seeing these two together, I need to make note of May time being a month that I should focus on the things I do have over other people. I like the quote, "Don't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree." So before I put myself in a position where I've like paralyzed myself from moving forward because I don't feel like I'm enough, I should be writing down the things that I can bring and I do bring, and looking at what content and what skill sets I do have, what hasn't been tried yet. Remember, going back to looking at the things that have been tried and tested, how can I learn from them, and how can I move forward in a way that is more likely to work? So I'm going to kind of make this as brief as possible because I feel like I'm waffling on. The Emperor was another one I got in reverse to clarify the Nine of Pentacles. What do these two have in common? If we remember everything the Emperor had at the beginning of the year, which is about structure, rules, restrictions, he's in reverse, so it's moving from rules and restrictions. She's very much like that too. She's a very laid back card. She doesn't have loads of rules. She's actually just chilling. She's a very independent card as well. She doesn't play by anyone else's rules. So together, I feel like this sort of tells me that where I was initially stuck, maybe between other people and other ways of thinking, I choose the route that is very independent. I move away from restrictions brought onto other people. I choose the independent route, and also even creative freedom, because this is a career reading, so you've got to go back to what you're focused on reading about. So it's like choosing to move away from maybe other people's ideas of creativity and what, how they should create content, and it's about choosing my own. I might decide that I don't need them, and I can write my own rules, and I can sort of celebrate myself and my own achievements. So that gives me the confidence in knowing I sort of find peace again. Ace of Swords had an interesting clarifier. Ace of Swords was literally clarified by the Ace of Swords, which to me is really reassuring because it just makes the energy even stronger. And feeling a really good improvement in being able to communicate my ideas as well, because of that blockage there, mental blockage coming before the Ace of Swords, tells me progress has been made. More focused, confident, assertiveness, because you've got to be very assertive to be an Ace of Swords energy. So confidence is definitely growing this year. Like if I look at this year as an overall, I'm finding courage and strength by the end of the year. The moon you want more clarity on, because it's often one of the darkest and most confusing cards in the deck. So it was quite nice to see the strength. So from that place of clarity, from that assertiveness, I might have found a lot more courage moving forward. Like I just said, this is about me not backing down, believing in myself around areas that are new and around these new ideas that I had, which could potentially be scary. And also because the Ace of Swords is about communicating and using your words, and it being close to the Strength card tells me that maybe this could be telling me that I should be making myself known, so making sure that I'm making myself be heard. I can also remind myself that in August it's best to choose the path that is scarier but more worthwhile. All the best things are outside of our comfort zone. Write things down, like I said, in your journal to remind yourself when the time of the year comes. It's best to focus on, if I'm choosing options or something, if I want to go this way or that way around this time of year, it's best to make new ideas outside of my comfort zone. But because I've got a clarifier for the second strength that I got, that gives me more context about what the strength could be needed for. And I've got the Three of Pentacles, so this once again is similar to the introduction of connections and people and partnership card that I've got coming up in November. So this kind of confirms that it could be related to courage needed to work with other people and to collaborate. Reminds me of the Two of Swords, which was like a blockage in being able to communicate well with other people and stepping into the role of being a leader. So once again, that tells me like a story of being able to find that courage to do that, whereas before I might not have felt like I was able to, or I had what it takes, etc. Doing it so that everyone works together productively. I feel like with the Seven of Cups, it's like someone who can't decide because it's like an overwhelming decision, or isn't necessarily sure what each decision involves entirely. However, that does mean she doesn't lack any opportunities, and that means she's got a lot of options, which is a positive. But then the clarifier is really helpful because it helps me understand what I need to know to help me in that frame of mind, because it can be like stressful when you're overwhelmed and you're having to make a decision, you've got loads of options in front of you. So I got the Temperance to clarify that, and she's about patience. She's a very peaceful card, so I know that this situation, because it's clarified by the Temperance, it doesn't involve making any rash decisions, and it doesn't involve rushing into something. I should take a longer, harder look at the different options that I have and truly weigh up some pros and cons that I need to think about. I want to ask her to take a peek at every single option that she's got in front of her. If I'm promised something is really great in one of these cups, like I need to make sure I'm fully aware of if it is or not. She's got two cups in her hand that she's manipulating, and she's obviously looking at all of the cups in front of her. So that might be a piece of advice to her in saying that maybe two ideas can be blended. Maybe I can take two opportunities at once to make something good come out of them. Give each idea like a trial period, sort of like test some out before I fully commit myself to one idea, because the Temperance is also about moderation, spreading my attention across all the different options that are laid out in front of me. The whole idea of having more patience in making a decision and choosing one of those cups makes sense with the December card too, because of that being about some form of disappointment or maybe even boredom or just frustration about what cups I do have in front of me. So that kind of confirms the same message, to be a bit more patient, not to rush into things, and be more aware that I know what I could be getting myself in for before deciding something, because it's likely that I'll end up not necessarily regretting it, but not feeling that content about it. So I loved the clarifier that I got for the Two of Cups because it's the star card, and a star card with anything to do with a connection with someone or a partnership of some kind, to me always makes me think of like a soulmate sort of connection, and not romantically, because a lot of people, obviously this is a career reading, and a lot of people think that soulmates have to be like on a romantic level, but I feel like you can have soulmates when it comes to best friends and people that you just get on well with. To me, that feels like this is a partnership or a connection that is very valid and worthwhile, and makes me feel very inspired and optimistic and hopeful. Two people who can be very at peace with working with one another, and very open and expressing creative energy. And also, like, the star is another card that represents being in the spotlight, but with somebody else. Like, these two people have a common goal or something that they both desire, which is coming from the same place, so they're sort of achieving that together. So obviously clarifiers are a lot more interesting and valuable when cards look a bit concerning and you're like, well, what could this possibly mean when everything else looks so good? I got the Knight of Wands in reverse, so once again it's everything opposite about the Knight of Wands. The Knight of Wands is a very excitable character. I always say he's like puppy dog energy. He doesn't know whether he's coming or going, and he just can't stop moving, and he's just like really excitable. So in reverse, that's boredom. He's not able to travel anywhere, go anywhere, or he's stuck in a routine, and it's sort of like that peace that comes from November might put him in a place of boredom. It's about making sure I had a longer time to plan back in October to avoid this. Don't get too cocky about things. Sometimes the Knight of Wands can be a bit too cocky, so that decision might have been down to some cockiness. So maybe it's just because I'm very ambitious. Like, I think that something's going to work straight away, but I need to have more patience, because the Temperance card is here, and the Four of Cups is often someone who's like, well, I thought it was going to be bigger and better than this, but sometimes it just takes more time than maybe he wants it to. I need to do a lot more research. She's a scientist, so she does a lot of research to back up her findings and to move forward in a direction confidently. And if we're looking at the Two of Cups, this could likely be to do with somebody else too, so I need to make sure that I'm aware of everything that this decision, this connection means when it comes to a business move or the business or my career. It seems like there's some very needed and necessary shifts that I want to create in the year for myself to bring in some more stability and security, because maybe I've previously felt that my head was in the clouds a little and I was a bit more unfocused and fixated on the far future. I feel like 2021 for me will be more about thinking like, right, what is going to work for me long term? What do I practically need to do? How can I logically find the solutions to problems that I've had before? You know, I might do a lot of reflecting in the past, like what worked then, what didn't, what isn't, what hasn't, like how can I push forward in ways that is more likely to provide results. And you can see from what you've just watched how I came to that conclusion. Tarot can be very overwhelming because just to get to that small conclusion, I had to look at 13 different cards, 24 if you want to include the clarifiers as well. So June looked particularly good, but also I've noticed most people's birth, when I do these readings, most people's birth month always looks one of the best cards that you get. So thank you very much for watching. I hope that this has helped and it's not been too long-winded and it's inspired you to read for yourself to find out what kind of year you have in store. Thanks for listening to me waffle. I'm aware this was a long video. I will see you for my next one. Make sure you subscribe to the channel to be notified every time I make a brand new video. I'm on social media such as Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. I have a Patreon, so thank you to my top patrons for supporting this channel. You allow me to do this full time and to keep living my dreams. Thank you, and I'll see you guys for my next video. Bye!